Welcome back to DidsburyFM. We seem to have acquired a town crier. Thank you. This is our third speaker of the evening, Dr. Peter Awkright. Peter is an immunologist, so welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much.
Peter, I wondered if we could sort of start from the beginning. What's your specialism? What's your official title?
Okay, so I work with children, so I'm a paediatrician, and I'm interested in children whose immune system doesn't work properly. So actually, I'm a paediatric infectious disease and immunology doctor, and I'd also do a bit of allergy as well.
Oh, excellent, good. We're all sort of like, oh, big brain. That is what I've written here. Large brain knows a lot of things. That's really interesting. Now, how did you get there? So to speak. What did you study at university? Did you always want to do medicine?
Yeah, I wanted to do medicine from the age of 6.
Wow.
And the reason why I wanted to do medicine is because I didn't like the way that doctors communicated with patients when I was growing up. So obviously, having your vaccinations at school is really important and it's going to save lives. But to be lined up with all your friends in primary school for these needles, where you didn't know what was going to go on, didn't seem like it was ideal in terms of communication with patients. So I thought from then that I actually wanted to do medicine, and I ended up in the field of infectious disease, which is actually what I was first thinking about at the age of 8 or 9.
Wow. Now, I detect an accent. That's not being racist or anything of that sort. But I just wondered, I've got an accent, that's because I'm not from Manchester. You're Australian, right?
Yeah, I've come from Australia, and one of my aims coming from Australia is to try and get people to speak properly. And I think I'm having some trouble because everyone keeps speaking with this much better accent than I've got. But I am originally from Perth. Yeah.
Brilliant. And so how long have you been, practically Mancunian, aren't you? You've been here for quite a while.
I've been in Manchester now for 20 years.
Wow. Right. You've still got your accent.
Yeah, and I've been in England for 33 years, so I've still got my accent. I'm still trying to get people to speak properly. And I think others are trying to get me to speak properly as well.
So Peter, I wanted to ask you quite a lot of questions, but firstly about kind of your inspiration, which you told us about how you got interested in medicine. Yeah. But I wondered if there were any kind of inspirational quotes that you live by, or kind of the way you live your own life along practicing medicine that you could share with us.
Okay, so that's a good question. And I suppose for everyone, what they're after is happiness, and what they're trying to avoid is misery. And there's a good quote, actually it comes from Cicero 2,000 years ago, and it's about community and friendship. And the quote goes, "Friendship and community improves happiness and abates misery by doubling our joy and dividing our grief." And I think there's a lot of truth in that, even living in Manchester and experiencing what's gone on in Manchester over the last year with the Manchester Arena bombing, where what happened was people came together after that event to share in the misery and support other people, and I thought that was absolutely fantastic, and that's what Manchester community is all about.
Yeah. I think we'll all agree with that. Yeah. I thought I was going to cry. It's hard to get me to cry, gosh. So Peter, I also wanted to ask, you're a very famous immunologist, you're well known, we're lucky to have you, and you're often travelling around everywhere. But I wanted to ask you about the power of parents and patients, and a little girl called Amy Driver. Can you just sort of share that story with us and how parents and patients can really, be empowered to help the NHS?
Sure. So I think in the olden days, doctors were stood on a pedestal and what they said goes. Nowadays, it's much more of a partnership. And certainly my success is down to my patients and their parents, and particularly one little girl, as you said, Amy Drew, who died the year after I arrived in Manchester in one of the district general hospitals. And she died of a disease that was, at that stage, untreatable. So she developed a cancer, she developed lymphoma, and there was no treatment for it. And the doctors did their best at the time, but it was undiagnosable and it was untreatable. And it's obviously tragic for anyone to lose a loved one. But it's doubly tragic to lose a child. And people deal with that in different ways. And Suzanne and Ian Drew, her parents, dealt with it not by going within themselves, but by saying, okay, she died of a cancer, but we think there's a problem with her immune system. There is no service for children with immune problems in Manchester. And we are going to work with the doctors and the chief executives of the hospital and the people in the university where I was working, and raise some money and develop a service so that other little girls and boys do not die of the same disease. So over the last 20 or 25 years, they've raised over £100,000 from the Amy Drew Foundation Trust, and they've supported the development of the Children's Allergy and Immunology Service at Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. And it's really through them that I'm here and that service is here. And without their initiative and actually dealing with the death of their child in a positive rather than a negative way, the service just wouldn't have developed. And over the years, the service has grown and developed, and we now have a very large service, and it's internationally known, and we work with colleagues not only in the rest of the UK, but we also work with colleagues in Europe, and in New York, and in Sydney, and in all sorts of places. Now, the story, I saw some other children that were similar to Amy over the years. And the first one I saw was soon after I became a consultant at the Children's Hospital. And that child, Alex, came into hospital in a coma. And we did a scan of her brain, and she had tumours throughout her brain, which again were lymphoma. And we were thinking about Amy, and we were thinking about Alex. And we thought that she also had probably the same immune problem as Amy had. And my colleagues, so it wasn't just me, it was other colleagues in Manchester, tried some chemotherapy, it didn't work. And then went on to try some cytotoxic T cells, which is the latest thing in immunology. So we gave immune cells that were specifically developed to fight the glandular fever virus that was causing the cancer. And we've got opinions from all round the country and also from parts of Europe. And they all said that don't do it because it's not going to work, it's a waste of time. But actually we had nothing to lose, and we did give the cytotoxic T cells. And this little girl, after 2 weeks, was recovering. And 15 years on,
wow.
She has now got a boyfriend, she's a hairdresser, and she's alive and lives a normal life.
Wow.
So it's really amazing where immunology has got to, even in 10 years. And then what I was doing is I was trying to work out what was causing her problems.
Yes.
And technology at the time was not possible to diagnose it, but with new generation sequencing and genetics, improvements in genetics, we were able, with help from colleagues in Paris, to diagnose the condition that Alex and the condition that Amy have. And it's actually a condition that started in the Northwest. So there was some person a number of hundred years ago who had a mutation or a defect in a gene that caused this problem with their immune system that predisposes them to cancers. And we've published our findings, but we've now been able to diagnose other children with this condition before they get sick and cure them by replacing their immune system with another immune system, like bone marrow transplantation. So it's very much a team effort, and it requires a lot of effort from not just me, but all my colleagues at the Children's Hospital and colleagues around the world to be able to develop the service and manage patients with these incredibly complex conditions.
Wow. Can we just have a round of applause? We're probably running over, but that's just amazing. To be able to cure and to, discover a disease that's really, so that's unique to the northwest of England.
Yeah, it's a very unique condition to the northwest, although there have been some patients now found as far afield as the United States who have actually emigrated to the United States and originated from the northwest.
Wow, did you know that? I know, we're a small little community network, but that is groundbreaking for us to hear it and to hear how you're treating it. So that's really, really is something. Thank you.
If I had £1 million, what I would like to do for the community is, I know that we're all trying to get into more electronic communication, but actually develop better ways of talking together. There's a actor studio, I don't know whether you've heard of it, in Manhattan, which has been going since the 30s. And that studio is all about getting people to interact in a one-to-one way and feel the emotions that the other person is feeling and help them to deal with their stresses and strains in life as well. And I think that might be something that would help in terms of not only our well-being, but also in terms of managing the serious concerns that we have with our life. And some of the mental illness that is a major problem in our community because people do not have the facilities to go and talk to others.
Yeah. That's very true. Isolation and loneliness is one of the things that we're trying to deal with. That actually people ought to be able to come on a Sunday evening, not know anybody, and just sit and listen and interact. There's no judgment. There's nothing. So I think that's actually a rather good idea.
I think what you're doing is quite unique and really interesting and inspirational in terms of different ways of communicating, which goes back to actually the old ways we used to communicate. And I don't think it's going to be replaced by Facebook or Twitter, although those may help in terms of speeding up some forms of communication, particularly maybe if you're Donald Trump.
Wow. I don't want to get sued. Although I love a fight in the day job, so tweet me, Donald. Thank you. I didn't expect that, so you really thrown me off, really. So I guess two last things to ask you is, who inspires you? I know you're married, your wife is in the audience, and you've got children. And I wondered what your inspiration was, and managing what can only be a very difficult job and making an impact, and how you did that. It's actually 3 questions. The second question is really about suggesting somebody to come on from our community that we can talk about. And then the last thing is really about what can we do as parents to support our immunity, the immune system. You know, I make my kids eat lots of broccoli, kale, I know, blitz it into, you know, spaghetti bolognese and all the rest of it. But are there any steps that we can do? I'm not talking about the kind of the more complex cases, but are there little things that we can all do in everyday life at all that might assist? You know, so going to ask for antibiotics all the time, when that may not be the answer. You know, should we be taking fish oils like I do, or taking Sambucol? Ways to improve, I just wonder. So there were, in fact, was that 4 questions?
It was.
Fairness, I am legal. Yeah, so I just wondered if you could share your views on some of those. Take them in any order.
Okay, so let me start with your last question, because I think that's the most important, and not only relevant to children, but I feel it's more relevant as we're getting older. And that's what we can do to remain healthy, not only in terms of our immune system, but generally. And there's a lot of information out there in terms of what we could do to remain healthy. Don't drink as much, stop smoking, reduce weight. Actually, it seems like the most important thing we can all do is probably get off our butts and do some exercise. And actually there was something in the latest news this week to suggest that people who exercise regularly when they're older are likely to live 5 to 10 years longer than those that are sedentary. And that's something we can all do. So bringing it back to the immunology allergy circle, one of my colleagues who started in immunology in around 1900 and is now 105,
Wow.
has a video of why he has got to the age of 105 and he's still turning up at allergy conferences and still working.
Wow.
And the thing that
Does he drink?
Well, the thing...
We hope so.
There are probably quite a few things that he's doing to remain well, but the thing that comes across on his video, and you can watch it if you want to, and he's got a YouTube video, is to keep active and doing exercises. And he uses actually a walking stick at the moment, but he doesn't use the walking stick so much to walk, but he's going like this to do some exercises with it, lifting his arms and moving his fingers. And I think as we get older, we tend to sit in one place, and that's really something that we can all do, which is reasonably straightforward. We don't need to be marathon runners. We could just be
We've got
going
one
out.
coming up after you.
We could just be going walking in the park with our dog or our wife or our children.
Wow. I've forgotten the other questions. I'm thinking about that man. What's his name, that man who's 105 and still exercising?
So it's Bill, and I'm going to have to think about his surname for you.
Okay. Well, I can let the other questions go, I think. Can we give Peter another round of applause? Peter, one last question. On the radio show, we asked people to provide 3 songs. There are people in the audience who've been speakers. They're yet to come on the radio show. You know who you are.
Thank you.
And we asked for three songs. I just wanted very quickly, before Sarah shouts at me, if you could tell us your 3 song choices and why, and your favourite book.
Okay. So the first song, everyone's got dreams, and everyone likes to dream. And one of the songs that I really like and find inspirational is The Impossible Dream from Man of La Mancha. And actually that is quite inspirational because we all are allowed to dream, and hopefully things go well. The second song actually is quite a materialistic world, isn't it? And the second song is about the lack of happiness sometimes you get from acquiring more and more wealth. And that is Where You Go to My Lovely by Peter Stanson. And it's all about this young lady who's got everything in the world, but actually came from the slums, and when she's in her own bed, actually probably thinks about where she came from and her family. And the final song really relates to, we all have successes, but sometimes we have problems that we need to deal with, or tragedies, or someone's sick, or someone dies. And in that case, we all need a bridge over troubled waters, by Simon and Garfunkel. And really, you were talking to some of the other speakers about successes and failures. And everyone can deal with success, but we're all going to have to deal with failures at some point in our life. And we're all going to need that bridge over troubled waters sometimes to get us through. And that's what community is all about.
On your book?
And my book.
I ran out of time, that's why I didn't get to the other two.
My book, well again, you need to have big dreams and inspirations, and maybe great expectations as well. And actually that links up to where I've come from and where someone in the book went to, because they were a prisoner living in London, and they got shipped off to Australia and made their fortunes there, and then came back. And Pip actually got some of the funding and the money that this chap accumulated as a sheep farmer in Australia. And it's a matter of sharing, isn't it? So there's no point in just accumulating a whole lot of wealth. But if you can share it with other people, it makes your success so much better.
Absolutely. Well, I haven't actually got the £1 million, but it's really good to remember that when we do get anything, we're good to share. Peter, thank you so much.
Pleasure.